Alright, all you moviegoers out there, welcome back to the Indy Radio Arcade. And apparently, according to the maestro, Dan the Weatherman Stu has successfully made it to not only Los Angeles, but Las Vegas, a part of the $64,000 question that he only has another 45 minutes to complete. I highly doubt he's going to be able to make it to Tokyo and Africa in enough time to complete it, so we're going to move on to a little bit of that film review we usually like to do to kick off this show. So, Maestro, if you will, let's go into the film reel 10 for another edition of the 3MR. And the movie we have up for this week is another one of those J. Meeks recommended films. And this one is none other than the 1990 film known as Bird on a Wire. A movie I've been trying to see on VHS for approximately 3 years now. And I finally was able to find it just mere moments before the Indy Radio Arcade. And we gotta give a big thank you to none other than the maestro for actually allowing us to watch this film on VHS, a part of his mass VHS collection that he has in his home. So, thank you once again, maestro. And the meat and potatoes for this said film would see Rick Jarman, who was put in witness protection after doing a favor for the FBI busting a drug deal for Eugene Sorsen, would find out 15 years later that not only Eugene was released from prison, but his old girlfriend Marianne would come and stop in on him at his local job that he would take cover under for him to panic, try to escape, and for his life to be turned upside down within 3 minutes flat. And with those meat and potatoes out of the way, folks, what did I like about this movie? Well, for one, the person who directed this said film was responsible for such great films such as Saturday Night Fever, Dracula, Blue Thunder, War Games, also featured in the movie Incognito, and was also responsible for the classic film of Evel Knievel and Short Circuit. Thank you for reminding me, Maestro. Amongst other great films he was able to do over his long film-like career. And besides the director of this said film, which was John Badham, by the way, hopefully you said that name right, also the actors that was featured during this said film, and right off the bat, Mel Gibson, who was featured in this movie. And before we forget, this film would come out 14 months after Lethal Weapon 2, and at least a month before his other film co-starring with Robert Downey Jr. himself in Air America. So he was busy this year with all the movies he was in, and along with that, folks, for those who don't know, he was also featured in Mad Max, along with Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, The Expendables, and any other big action movie you could possibly imagine over the past couple of years. And speaking of people who were in big action flicks, you also had, who was featured in this said film, Bill Duke, who was not only featured in the first Predator film, but was also featured in a movie that Maestro said we should have reviewed this month, known as Commando. And yeah, Maestro, in the future, we will be reviewing that movie because that movie was awesome too. And he was also featured in the film Hoodlum, along with other great films in his career. And another actor who was featured in this movie was David Carradine. And for those who know him for Kill Bill 1 and 2, he was also featured in one of my favorite Kung Fu shows next to WMAC Masters of Kung Fu, The Legend Continues, that originally started out as Kung Fu the Movie, and then eventually would go on to a TV series, but I digress. And oh, before I forget to, and thank you for reminding me, Maestro, he was also featured in the original Death Race. And alongside with them, you also had Goldie Hawn, who was not only featured in the classic movie of Wildcats, but also Private Benjamin, and also during the most hilarious movie I've seen yet about people who can live forever, known as Death Becomes Her. And if you haven't seen that film, folks, definitely give it a watch because it's absolutely hilarious. But besides other movie recommendations, folks, you also had Christopher Judge, who played not only Kratos in the 2018 installment of God of War, but was also featured as one of the heavy men in the movie and TV series of Stargate SG-1. Now, I can't remember the actual name of the guy featured in it, but he had that weird tattoo on his head, which I always thought was cool. And finally, last but not least, you also had Blue Menkuma, who was featured in this film, who was also featured in Halloween 2, RoboCop, the RoboCop animated series, and was even featured during Beast Wars Transformers. So yeah, definitely a lot of heavy-hitting actors featured in this said film. Another thing that I loved about this film was not only the crazy stunts that was featured during it, but also all of the crazy explosions that was happening during this film as well. From motorcycles to gasoline stations to even automobiles that would explode during the said movie. And like the clown told me a long time ago, aka Jay Meeks, explosions never get old. And one of my favorite scenes featured in this said film, which definitely didn't involve any explosions whatsoever, would be the one scene where Rick and Marianne tried to get away on a motorcycle away from a cop trying to pursue them in this small Chinatown-like alley for the cop to say, "I'm still pursuing the criminals. I'm still pursuing the criminals," for Rick and Marianne to go through this wet cement down this alleyway, and then for the cop to just fly and go, "Whoa!" and land face first right directly into the wet cement and would say, "I'm lost the pursuit." I don't know how in the world he was able to say that in wet cement so clearly, but for some strange reason, it was funny to me. It really was. And seeing the fact that we don't know how to review movies along the lines of Siskel and Ebert or any of those other famous movie reviewers you know about there, we say this. If you want to go ahead and watch a movie featuring a guy using his multiple identities over the years he used to escape an evil drug dealer that he locked up for well over 20 years and tried to use his land, air, and sea skills to help himself to get away, all while trying to keep his former girlfriend safe in the process, then I recommend you go out there and watch that flick. And try to watch it on digital video and don't try to hunt it down on VHS unless you know a guy like I do. Just a warning. Just a warning. And with that said, folks, we might as well head back into this music, and when we return, we'll be back with more of the Indie Radio Arcade right after a word from our sponsors. So don't run out of quarters just yet, folks, and stay tuned.